Okay, so let me make it clear that I've never played a Diablo game before. I've played other loot-based games, but not Diablo. This preview for the game, or beta impressions, however you want to call it, is from a complete newcomer's perspective, but let me say this. The Diablo 4 beta is incredible, and as of right now my hype for the full release in June is cautiously sky high. Now, I use the word cautiously due to the recent drama surrounding the Diablo series and Blizzard as a whole. The mobile game Diablo Immortal, which launched last year, is one of the greediest video game releases of all time, and quite literally asks for your entire life savings just to get one top rated item, and no, that is not hyperbolic, with one streamer spending 20k to not even get a single 5 out of 5 rated item. Then you have Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick, who allegedly cultured a workplace of systemic discrimination against women, including not sharing sexual assault and other allegations with the board. As reported by the Washington Post, these allegations have led to multiple ongoing lawsuits, and one of these is apparently close to a judge approving an $18 million settlement. Now, I feel it's important to mention these things as many people, including myself, were skeptical of what the next Diablo game would look like coming after such a greedy previous title, and the horrid work conditions which have recently plagued the company. But after playing the beta, I'm hopeful that the full release could be something special. The beta takes place at the beginning of the game and allows you to progress one of 3 main quest lines to a certain point and get your character to level 25, as well as explore the surrounding areas and any side quests or world events that you may encounter. These world events I mentioned are really interesting, and I'll discuss those more later in the video. For now though, I want to discuss the beta in 4 parts: presentation, music, gameplay and performance. I played this beta on the PS5 and was blown away by the detail and level of graphical fidelity in this beta. From leaving footsteps in the snow to the incredible lighting engine leaving caves and dungeons beautifully lit, and with rays of light cascading through so many areas of the game. Every indoor space in the game is filled to the brim with set dressing, details, accessories and destroyable objects for you to break. From shimmering candles in dank pubs and taverns to the eerie design of demonic dungeons, the game is constantly impressing visually. The game doesn't just look impressive because of the graphical detail though, but also due to the wonderful work the art team has clearly done here. The whole game so far has a wonderfully depressing and oppressive feel to it due to the wonderful work that has been put into the world design done by the artists. When it comes to your character, the game looks just as impressive. The weapons and armor you receive all look incredibly detailed and really interesting. The legendary items in particular stand out and have some truly gorgeous designs. All of your abilities as well look great, and I'm sure the higher you level your character in the full game, the cooler these abilities will look. Enemies here all look great as well, with notable standouts being the world boss Ashava, who I fought against, and the Butcher, who I sadly didn't run into throughout my time with the beta. The other standout for me were the cutscenes. The opening visual of the game, whilst completely CGI, is stunning and is a great introduction to the game. On the other hand, in-game cutscenes usually pull the camera closer to the action. This sometimes reveals the lower level of detail on some objects as they are only meant to be seen from afar. But the level of detail on character models is great, and the animation of the characters' faces throughout the cutscenes are extremely expressive and almost have a cartoon-like quality to them. Overall, the incredible and gorgeous presentation of the game fills the world with this depressing, bleak atmosphere and is a treat for the eyes. This presentation though is only accentuated by the music. Now for my feelings on the music. That's easy, it's sick. The music constantly is controlling the tone of the game. It sounds intimidating, scary and oppressive. The music constantly is making you feel unwelcome in this world and letting you know that this world is filled with danger around every corner. The music alongside the presentation really gives the player a feeling of the world's oppressive atmosphere, and whilst it may not be the most bombastic or energetic music, it certainly fits the game brilliantly and helps immerse the player in this demonic adventure. It's not only the music though that sounds great. Sound effects throughout the game help immerse the players, hearing the shrieks and growls of demons off screen in a dungeon or the sounds of a damp cave. Everything sounds great and keeps the player immersed. The voice performances here are absolutely worth mentioning as well. It's very much normal for games to have poor voice acting and for that to be accepted, but here the voice performances are extremely impressive. From the muffled and blood-soaked words of a dying knight,
She wasn't human. She was a demon, like the statue. Claims she mothered sanctuary. It was a dead bloodbath.
to the commanding words of a leader.
If you would travel to Yelesna and take stock of events there, you would have the gratitude of the Cathedral of Light.
All the voices here sound convincing and impressively done. My only real issue with the music of this game so far is the fact it lacks any truly standout or memorable tracks. It has no piece of music that I would immediately be able to recognise or remember for a long period of time, but overall it suits the atmosphere of the game and the sound design for everything else is brilliant. Talking about brilliant, the gameplay is just so much fun. That's always the first thing I'm looking for when I start playing a brand new game. Is the main gameplay loop fun and enjoyable? And in this case, the answer is an outstanding yes. The combat here feels great. It feels heavy and weighted, with each hit having a satisfying feel to it. Your abilities and skills all link together nicely in order to create fun combos and lethal attacks to take down the hordes of enemies you'll face. The combat here is the name of the game, and it's built upon it using the excellent loot and gear system that these kinds of games are known for. For the most part, loot and gear will just increase your damage, armor and potentially other stats, but when you start getting high class and rare loot, that's when it really shows how important it is. This loot will actively change and improve some of your abilities. One example I had of this was when I attacked after using a stealth ability as my rogue character. It would drop multiple bombs around me, damaging enemies. Or another example was whenever I used a specific kind of ability, it had a 3% chance to summon a rain of arrows from above onto the enemy I hit with that ability. These pieces of loot changed which abilities I was going to unlock next, and made me create specific and new builds in order to maximize the effectiveness of these legendary pieces of gear. The game itself has an open world structure with villages throughout. There is a main big village in the beta and a bunch of small villages around it. The world is littered with dungeons for you to fight through, as well as smaller challenges such as cellars, world bosses and world events. Dungeons are what you expect from Diablo games and games similar to this. You go in, kill a bunch of enemies, a boss to finish it off, and then get a bunch of loot whilst doing it. Cellars are basically one room combat challenges that drop loot and are pretty simplistic, but still enjoyable. Now where the game really gets interesting is with its previously mentioned world events and world bosses. World events are areas you will find in the world that usually, in case of challenge, you can take on seamlessly with other players. For example, you walk past an old and destroyed fort with prisoners. Entering the fort will enter you in the world event and seamlessly link you with other players taking on this event. These events usually involve clearing out an area of enemies and then taking on a boss, giving you loot at the end. Another example of these events is you'll find an NPC stuck and needing protecting from enemies. This is usually a defend the point exercise that usually lasts about a couple minutes, but it still provides a welcome distraction from the other things in the world. These world events are a great part of the game and keep you actively enjoyed and interested whilst playing. This game also has a massive multiplayer component. You can play with friends, but you will also be playing on a shared world with other players who you will see roaming the villages and the open world, and will also take part with you in the aforementioned world events. The big new fancy thing though is the world bosses. These are scripted bosses that appear at specific times for you and others to try and collaboratively defeat. These have a timer of 15 minutes and require you and a bunch of other players who are all seamlessly playing together to all take on this behemoth demon together in order to get great loot. Sadly, I was underleveled when taking on these events and just kept dying in one hit, but the spectacle of the event made it still a highly enjoyable and entertaining experience. To be honest though, I do feel quite sorry for the players who had to keep reviving me about every 10 seconds during this fight. There really is so much to do and experience in this world, and this was only the beta. Hopefully the full release is just as dense as this, because there was so much to do. I was constantly being distracted by another side quest or another dungeon to clear. All of this is pushed by the excellent loot. You want to keep engaging in all this content because you constantly want to be getting new loot. One thing I really want to mention here is the teleporting system. By pressing up on the D-pad, you open a portal to the big town in the beta. Here you can sell or salvage all the loot you have and then head back to your portal and go right back to where you left off in the overworld. This system means you're free to get as much loot as you want and engage in as much content as you want before quickly teleporting, selling your loot, healing up, and then going right back through your portal and continuing your journey. This gives the game a real flow and a real addicting loop of killing, looting, selling, and repeat, without ever having to run back to villages over and over again. It keeps the game really fun and prevents there being any downtime at all. Overall, the world design, combat design, and loot systems all keep the game being an addictive joyride that hopefully remains and continues once the game fully releases. I played the beta for about 10 to 15 hours and was nowhere near getting bored, so hopefully that trend continues in the full game and the core gameplay loop doesn't become repetitive or boring. Okay, so there's not too much to say here in terms of performance. This is a beta build, so it's meant to stress test the game and its servers, so a few issues are to be expected. Saying that though, I had very little problems and a few frame drops here and there, but for the most part pretty flawless. Internet wise, I did have a couple of slingshot moments where the game was clearly connecting me with other players doing world events and world bosses, but nothing too bad. The worst I had was a 5-second period where I couldn't move or attack because the game had entirely frozen and lagged, but this was an isolated incident. I have to say I never got logged out or kicked out and my game never crashed, but looking on Twitter, some people did have these issues, so it's worth mentioning. For the most part though, performance was pretty impressive, and hopefully the minor issues I did encounter can be ironed out before the full release. It is also important to know I experienced no bugs that I was aware of at least. As you can tell, I've come away very positively from this beta test, and can't wait to play more of the beta this weekend during the open beta. The game is showing a huge amount of potential and hopefully Blizzard don't squander it. The biggest fear for me though isn't the quality of the game, but instead how Blizzard intend to monetize this game after the infamous release of Diablo Immortal. If Diablo 4 is even 1/10 of the greediness of Diablo Immortal, that would still be too greedy. The hope is that monetization in this game is little to none, besides maybe a cosmetic only season pass and paid DLC. This sadly is probably wishful thinking though, but if it isn't and the game releases with little to no monetization, then I truly believe we could be in for one of the greatest games to release in 2023. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I know it went on a bit long, but I really wanted to talk about my feelings for this massively anticipated game. Please make sure to like, comment and subscribe, all the usual stuff, and just let me know if you would like any more scripted content like this in the future. This is by far the most complicated and longest video I've made in terms of total time to create, so if you do like this style of video, then please just let me know so I can make more of it. Thank you again so much for watching. Bye, have a nice evening, bosh.